Welcome to another episode on the Coach Turf podcast. I'm Coach Daniel Northeast. That's Daniel Northeast for short. And we're joined by Colin Reid. Hello, Colin. How are you today, this morning?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good and well. I'll start again. I'm looking forward to talk about this episode. All the things we got to discuss. Now that all the last 16 games have been completed, the sun's shining. At the moment, I'm in the shade, so within about quarter of an hour, that sun will be coming down, and I've got a bit of outside work to do today. So, looking forward to get the morning off. Talking about football.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about we're going to look back at the games around the 16 and World Cup, look forward to what's happening in the quarterfinals, and we're going to end with the the Mexico-England game. So let's have a look at let's go through the games that, we had in the last 16. Where do you want to start with those?
Well, we start at the beginning, where Canada, one of the co-hosts, were beaten comprehensively 3-0 by Morocco. Which is a fantastic game. And like I said, Morocco have continued all the way through the tournament. And they're now the last representatives of Africa, or maybe not. I need to check that, but yes. So then we had a very good 1-0 win by France against Paraguay. Although France didn't play in the way that they have been playing, although they were able to get over that line with that sort of, when I say performance, it was an average performance. There was no fantastic sort of individual standout performances, but you've got to say collectively they showed a little bit of grit and determination. So great win for France. And then we had the surprise, and the one that your sort of outside bet has been, where Norway beat Brazil 2-1. What a fantastic game that was. And I'm sure you'll mention that briefly. But like I said, Norway have moved on. And like I say, they've got such a good spirit going with what's going on in the country and what's actually going on in the World Cup with their fans and their rowing. So let's hope that stops after the next round. And we'll talk about those in a minute as well, because they're playing England. Then we had our game where we beat Mexico 3-2. We'll talk about that in more detail in a little bit time. And then last night you had Spain beating Portugal by a single goal to nil. It wasn't last night, it was the night before that. Spain beating Portugal 1-0. And then that great result for Belgium beating the other co-hosts, United States of America 4-1. So knowing that America had their top team out, even though the guy Balogun as they say, was sent off and should have been suspended, then obviously intervention by Mr. President, got him to play. So, yeah, who knows with what Mr. Starmer can do for maybe getting Kwanzaa reinstated, but I don't hold much hope on that one. Anyway, on to Argentina yesterday. What a fantastic game. Egypt were 2-0 up with relatively little time to go. And as you know, it's all history now. Argentina end up beating them 3-2. Bit of controversy in there over certain decisions. But, the fact remains that Argentina won 3-2 and are heading on to the last 8, the quarterfinals. And then last night's game, which was unbelievable. Colombia, who are tipped by many to go on, drawing with 0-0 Switzerland in normal time and then going to extra time, and it still ended up 0-0. Only for Switzerland to win 4-3 on penalties. So lots to talk about, lots of good games and a few surprises along the way. Is there any in there that you want to just mention briefly?
As you've mentioned, of course, we're going to talk about England in a bit, but yeah, Norway. I just felt that this tournament could be one where they might surprise some people and get to some of the latter stages. Did I think they'd be having to play England in the quarterfinals? No, but I guess if I did my research beforehand, I might have calculated that was a possibility. But wow, they've been great. The whole vibe around Norway at the moment is so positive. With that rowing chart thing that they've got, it's gone viral, gone global. We're seeing loads of videos with that, and and the team is playing really well. They've got a lot of spirit. They might not have, on paper, that when you're looking at it, they might not think, oh, is this team going to really do well? But they play as a team, and they've done what they've needed to do to get to this point. So well done to them. But no, you've mentioned also the host nations. Well, unfortunately for all of them, this was the end of the line. Canada, they came up against a very good Morocco side. You've mentioned Morocco, numerous occasions. I haven't done so, but yeah, Morocco, top side. Well done to them for beating Canada in that manner. And the US. Well, for some reason, I never really bought into the hype of the US. I know they play some really good games as well, but I just thought that they'd come up against this Belgium side, and they'd find that it was a tougher challenge. And in a way, I know there was there was a lot of controversy around Balogun. He sent him off, and then he could play. He played, but in a way, I'm happy that he didn't get on the score sheet and they didn't go through, because there would have been a lot of talk about that. Of course, I would have hoped it would have been in a different circumstances. I've got nothing against the lad. He's a great player, and I wish United States all the best and him going forward. But I just think on the day, I think Belgium just showed their superiority there in the way they play. They've got some top players. They've got some good players who can game changers. So that's good. And we're going to be talking about Mexico in a moment. So they're another team that host nation that unfortunately for them, the end of the line for them. But yeah, Switzerland, Colombia, just a feeling before the game that maybe Switzerland could pull something off. Of course, it was a very at times Colombia looked really really good. But yeah, non penalties, anyone can win it. So that's how it is. But yeah, Argentina, one of the favourites for it, and they showed why. 2-0 down, but it doesn't matter. You got to play to the end, and that's what they did. And they definitely have to be seen as serious, favourites and contenders for that. I've mentioned France on numerous occasions. They came up themselves against a tough. It was a tough game for them against Paraguay, France, but they got the job done. But yeah, it was a really good. I think that we had a lot of good football in the round of 16, and I'm really looking forward to the quarterfinals. Is there anything that you want to add to those games, or do you want to talk a little bit about what's ahead before we move on to England?
Yeah, I think we can talk about what lies ahead, and looking forward to some fantastic quarterfinals. As you see, France are playing Morocco, and that game can go any way. However, I'm going to say France for me. I'm going to have too much, and because they didn't perform so well in their last game, I think that they'll be keen to put in a shift and put on another fantastic performance. So that game's going to be brilliant. The game after that will be Spain and Belgium. And for me, there's only one winner there, and that's Spain. Again, they didn't perform at the highest level in their previous game. And again, when a team like France and Spain don't perform but get through, then in the next game there's going to be a little bit of a reaction. I can well see Spain winning that quite comfortably. But again, no game's going to be easy, so let's wait and see. I leave England. Obviously, England are playing Norway, and what an opportunity for both sides. But, I would be looking at England as strong favourites in that. We know that Norway possess good team spirit. They've got Haaland and Odegaard, who are very sort of influential within their squad and their team. We know that Haaland doesn't need to have many chances, as everybody says. And when he does get a chance, like I say, the two goals that he took in the last round were, great goals. One rising to finish with a great header, and then a great strike from just outside the box. So it is anybody's game, but you'd have to be honest and say that England you'd fancy. Moving on to the last game, Argentina have got that momentum. People are sort of saying that they're being favoured. You make your own luck. So when you're 2-0 down and you come back, whatever you say, you've got to have something about you to do that. And that may be more down to not only Argentina's ability to keep going and, got some fantastic players, but it may well be to sort of sides' inability to kill the games off. And when you're 2-0 up and you're absolutely dominating it, you've only got yourself to blame. So let's wait and see, because Argentina are going to play Switzerland. Switzerland have overachieved to get this far, and who knows? So it looks like we're up for some great, the next 4 games in the quarterfinals over the next couple of days are going to tell us a lot, I think. So looking forward very much to them. But now, obviously, what made England actually qualify was their fantastic win against Mexico, which for a lot of people is, an unexpected result. When I say unexpected, not because of the players that we've got and they've got, it was more around the conditions. And we know a lot has been made of, what everybody's been talking about, and that is playing at altitude. And like we discussed before, you sort of asked me what would be the game plan. And I said that we needed to make sure we try and control that first period, that we play at our tempo. And they did come out the blocks really fast, Mexico, but we dealt with that. And when we had goal kicks and that, we played a little bit more direct. Often Pickford would just go back to front and hit a long ball. And, in doing that, it took the pressure off. It gave Mexico the ball deeper in their own half and that to build. We set out that mid-block, didn't go and press them and leave a space at the back. And I think the game plan was executed to a T. And obviously there was twists and turns around sending offs, but we'll get into that in a minute. So for me, England to win 3-2 was a fantastic result. And knowing they went down to 10 men showed great resilience and showed, that we've got that mentality to win in a tricky situation when it would appear that everything was against us. But just looking at the starting lineup, I don't know if you've got anything you want to add briefly before we talk about the selection and who did what.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly, just going back because I didn't mention this, but yeah, Spain against Portugal, fantastic. They just showed their superiority in my opinion. Although at times the game just didn't seem like one where I would say it was a wow factor again. Once again, I get this from Spain that they're just continuing to play their game, the way they play. They're patient. They're doing the basics right. They're getting the basics right, and I think that's one of the reasons why they are progressing, and that's why they're going to be such a force in the next games. Because I think, against Belgium, because they play Belgium next, that's going to be one where they're going to have to improve. In my opinion, Belgium have kind of caught this kind of momentum. In my opinion, they've improved themselves. So I think it's going to be a very tough game for Spain. On paper, I think Spain should get it done, but this is a game that could go to penalties. In my view, the France-Morocco game, I back France, but this will be a tough game for France. But I think it will be a game that will be more comfortable because I think Morocco play football. Against Paraguay, it was a lot of physicality there. It wasn't an easy game for France. Norway, England in a moment. I mentioned that. Argentina, Switzerland. I think this one here, on paper, you see Argentina winning this one, should be comfortable. But if it doesn't happen that comfortable, one of the heroes of that game could be Kobel in goal, because I was impressed with what he did last night, against Colombia. But I do expect Argentina to go through. And England against Norway, England, I think, as you said, on paper, we should win this. The players that we've got, they're playing at the highest level, of course. Norway don't have that, but what they do have, they have the spirit. They do play a team football, and it's going to be very interesting. This is going to be a very interesting game. I'm just looking at it. Out of the 8 teams that have progressed, 6 of them are from Europe. So that's something. So that's something. But moving on to this England, this Mexico-England game, it was a great performance. I was extremely impressed. But before I share more thoughts on that, perhaps we could move to the way you saw the starting lineup. What did you think of that? The way England set up, the way they started it.
As for the England lineup, like you said, I've had to change the angle of the camera because the sun's on it. So hopefully we can stay out of the sun for a little while and remain in the shade. So starting off, the big debate was who was going to start at right back. So Pickford obviously picked himself. Konza was right back. Konza was right-sided centre-back, joined by Gay, and left-back was O'Reilly. So not too many surprises there. Then in midfield, he went for Anderson, Rice and Bellingham, sort of playing in a 2 and a 1. And then obviously Kane was down the middle up top, and then Saka was wide on the right and Gordon was wide on the left. So no surprises really. It was just who was going to go in at right back. So we didn't see Stones till later on. But yeah, like we said, it was very, very important the first period of the game because we knew that Mexico would come out of the blocks quickly. England had to negate that, which they did comfortably. And I think from the start, Jordan, Pickford was told, and obviously the game plan was to get the ball up the other end of the pitch and we'll contest it, see if we get anything from it, try and win the second balls and play from there. But generally the ball went up top. We didn't win the second balls and often it ended up with a keeper or got helped on. And that left us to defend sort of in a mid-block, which we did very well. So, again, the crowd was very noisy, as they're going to be. And it was all about keeping a clean sheet, not giving anything away early on, not conceded. And then hopefully if we could nick a goal. But it was even better than that. So as the game develops, and I think after the break, we had a little bit more possession. And like we said, we had to control the game. So when we did have the ball, it was vital that we kept it and that we didn't sort of leave ourselves exposed at the back. So we was a bit tentative, but in maintaining possession, which we did very well, we were able to sort of nullify their threat because they are a threat and direct when they regain possession and they get at you straight away. So what was even better, the first goal started from Pickford and it was a rollout. And as I remember, it went to Rice, who ran with it and he got us up the pitch. He played Saka with it again and continued his run. Gets past on the outside, I believe, and just cuts one back for Bellingham to come in and time his run and finish it. So that gave us a great start, and I'm thinking fantastic. But who could have believed then that within 2 minutes we go on to score a second one again? It was Bellingham again. That I think the play started in sort of a central area, a midfield area, but in terms of the pitch centre area, Anderson intercepted it. There was a little bit of interplay. We broke quite quickly, and then again it was Bellingham to finish it off. So to go 2-0 up, and I'm thinking like everyone else, if we can go in at the break 2-0, all well and good. But let's be fair, Mexico equalised quite quickly with a cross. I don't know if it was a cross or a corner now. It was half cleared and the lads swept it in with a great finish. So, again, your team talk's all set for one thing, and it would have probably been Thomas going, look, we're 2-0 up. Let's do the same again in the first 10 minutes. Let's keep it tight. Let's be a bit more direct, turn them round, get us up the pitch. And at this stage, I have to mention both Gordon and Saka, but Gordon in particular, he done a fantastic job of when we did regain possession, he got us up the pitch. Often he was isolated, but he ran us up the pitch. We was then able to get in contact with him, whether he turned out or whether the ball was cleared for a throw on. We was up around the ball, which is massively important in trying to, not be too detached and leave ourselves open to the counter-attack. But so that would have been his team talk. And then going in 2-1, it would have been a very different team talk. Similar in some ways in saying, look, let's not give them nothing away. But having that 2-goal cushion would have been vital. But only having one, you're then looking and thinking, oh, this is going to be a precarious game. And then, as it happens, Kwanzaa got sent off. But if you looked in real time, it wasn't even a free kick given. And then sort of having Kwanzaa sort of winning the ball or believing he won the ball ended up the other end of the pitch. And then there's a melee on the side of the pitch where the Mexican players, substitutes and coaching staff are going absolutely mad. And then, of course, it was brought back and then the dreaded VAR. I think it was about 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. May have been a little bit longer into the second half. And then when the VAR decision was reviewed, then quite right, I think it looked worse than what it is. Again, there was some controversy over apparently when the referee went over to view the screen, the first frame that he saw was the actual contact. There was no the ball rolling and then Kwanzaa comes flying in, wins it and follows through. The first image allegedly that the referee saw was indeed the contact where his legs extended and he's actually on the guy's shin. So, yeah, we then had to deal with 10 players, and then obviously substitutions had to be made. So at that stage, we're 2-1 up. We're down to 10 players. England sort of then brought on who did they bring on? They brought on Stones, and we shifted to a back five with Stones, Gay and Byrne, them central three, but Stones was on the outside of the right of the three. Gay went centrally, and then Byrne come on later on in the game as well, where we was holding on to the left sided, where they was bombarded us with sort of deep crosses, and we contested them well. When the sort of right and left wing backs, we made another sub, and O'Reilly come off, Spence come on, and so did Konza. Just shifted out from centre back to like a right wing back, but was really a right back in a five because we was under some serious pressure. And then in midfield, he sort of narrowed it off to having Rice, Bellingham, and Gordon, and then he made the change, and obviously Anderson had to come off, and then he put Rodgers on for Kane. So we finished off with Rodgers up top on his own, three across the midfield, Rice, Bellingham, Gordon, and they've done exceptionally well because obviously we didn't have anyone in wide areas in terms of wingers that were able to sort of help playing against their fullback and winger. So Rice and Gordon really done well in that they slid across and tried to help Konza, who was playing on the right, and Spence, who was playing on the left, to try and sort of get some pressure on the ball. But even when they couldn't get pressure on the ball and the balls were delivered, England to a man defended absolutely superb with clearances being made by and headers won by Stones and Byrne in particular. And again, Pickford made some great saves, and what he also did very well, you know, and I didn't mention it earlier on, when he got down to his bottom left-hand corner and Alba Banks style, it bounced and he's flipped it round. And then there was one that was going in the opposite top corner, which he got across to and saved magnificently. So, and as the game went on, like I said, when crosses coming in, he was commanding. He come out a few times and gathered the ball from crosses or even deflected them with punches. So for England to hold on for so long under that extreme pressure just goes to show that in Thomas's selection of who he brought on and the actual squad and players that he selected, and again, Byrne was very instrumental in that, in his towering stature and his ability not to have played any of the games, but to come in and look like he'd played there all his life and playing regularly in the tournament. And just putting Rodgers on front up top, Kane was absolutely shattered. I missed the point again. England went 3-1 up. To go 3-1 up where we got a penalty, and I said to my friend at the time, we need to score this penalty because it was always going to be that we was going to be under a cosh and it would only be a matter of time before they scored. And I honestly believed that. So when Kane took that, when it was 2-1 and Kane took that penalty and we go 3-1 up, it gave us that little bit of breathing space, although you knew it was going to be backs to the wall. So, yeah, a fantastic result, Dan. But anything you want to add on that great display?
I think it was very important for England once they got the goal to try and get another one, and they got it straight away. Especially against a team like Mexico, who really impressed me as well.
Yeah.
Top side, they themselves they never gave up. They could have had another goal before halftime. They got one from it was a free kick. It was a free kick for Mexico in the end that resulted in their goal before halftime. But they kept at it. They came close. to get in another before half time. Good for England that they didn't. But no, as I said, I mean, England scoring 2 goals in quick concession, it's like it's very important because you hear a lot of the time, once teams score, they kind of switch off. It's easy to switch off. And under those conditions, it would have been easy for England to switch off. But credit to everyone. You've mentioned Pickford. Yeah, we need performances like that from our goalkeeper. But you could mention every single one of them. Unbelievable. It was good that Gordon had finally had this game where I've been waiting for this game. I'm waiting for this game from Anthony Gordon. Somebody's just been telling me that it was a good thing that he's part of this squad in the World Cup, and I'm just hoping now that going forward in the games that we're going to see that where he starts with Saka on one side, he starts with Gordon, and he's got Bellingham there, and he's got Kane. Behind them, they've got they've got Rice and they've got Elliot Anderson. I like that. I like that. It looks good, and if it works, it's fantastic.
It'd be interesting to see if he starts with Gordon and Saka, and I think he's given them every reason to do that, knowing full well that we've got Rashford and Maduaki that can come on. So, like I said, we've got that balance and blend of and depth in terms of them wide areas, and they're really important because when you're fatigued and tired, they get you up the pitch, and that takes the pressure off. But like I say, in a game against Norway, then I expect us to be on the front foot and take the game to them. And let's hope that we continue in terms of what we produced in our in possession game, which was attacking with some pace and sort of very incisive with some great finishing. I think we've still got to be very mindful and don't leave ourselves open to the counter attack, knowing that if any balls come in from deeper areas or from wider areas, then who knows? We might start with Gay and Konza as we have, but if they are an aerial threat, hopefully we've got to try and negate that threat and prevent those crosses. But then Dan Burn is an ideal replacement or an ideal starter. That'll be interesting to see if Burn starts the game. That'll be interesting in the selection process to see if he's been put on there to man mark Haaland and actually go man for man against him. But let's wait and see. The only disappointing thing was Henderson, not the goalkeeper, broke his arm afterwards in celebrating. So that's his tournament over now. And a bit naive to do what he did, but obviously in excitement, I understand that he has broken his arm. So, yeah, let's look forward to playing Norway with positivity, and who knows what will happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope we get a similar performance. Just want to add that for me, out of all of those players, everyone deserves so much, and congrats and giving their credit. But for me, the play that stood out for me for England was Bellingham. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's not just the goals, but he was there in defence. He was there with the turns in the in the middle pitch. Taking players on. It was one of arguably his best performance for England, I think. And in those conditions, absolutely fantastic, absolutely excellent. And looking at him, I do honestly think that he could be a future captain of England. Jude Bellingham, he's got that. I think he's got that personality and that drive. And I think if he stays with this consistent level, and the other players as well, we've got a fantastic chance of winning this. It's probably the first time we've actually started to believe that we can challenge, France, we can challenge Argentina and Spain. I really believe that. But we've got to. Of course, it wasn't a flawless performance. There were things that we could, improve on. But yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic game for England, and yeah, happy with that. And looking forward to the next games. With against Norway, it's going to be interesting. As I said, I've got this sympathy towards Norway, but on the night, I'll be cheering on England, England, England.
Yeah, I think like you just quickly just to mention Bellingham, he had an outstanding performance as many of them did, but he was making vital interceptions and blocks from corner. He switched off one, and then he was able to regain and get back in a good position to sort of prevent possibly a third goal. But yeah, no, looking forward to Saturday evening. Obviously, before then we've got Thursday, we've got France and Morocco, and then Friday we got Spain and Belgium, and then England's night is Saturday against Norway, and then obviously the last quarter final is on Sunday. So that's when we get chance to see who our potential opponents are. But let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's keep doing the right things, and hopefully we'll continue and may get the chance to become World Cup winners. Let's wait and see.
Well, let's hope so. Well, Colin, this has been fantastic today. Thank you very much. Hopefully, next time we meet, we'll be talking about another England victory. But yeah, thanks for today. Hope everyone else has enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Notification bell to stay up to date with everything that's connected to this channel. And we hope to come back with more videos very soon. All the very best. Bye bye.
Cheers, Dan. All the best. Bye, guys.
Take care, Colin. Bye, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.